Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back in with another lesson on Revelation 22, 1 and 2. So I just thought I would go over this, partially because the numerology to me is incredible, but, just to add a few more lessons related to the kingdom, which is incredibly important thing to discuss. There's obviously many, many aspects of it that we literally cannot wrap our mind around at all. We can't even really imagine anything different than what we're going through now, which is tremendously evil. But the Bible does leave some clues, and it's absolutely incredible. And then to me, I find the numbers fascinating for sure. Revelation 22, 1, and he showed me a pure river of water of life. And so this water, and Christ uses this language as well, that he's living water, is referring to giving life, which is ultimately the word of God, which is knowledge, wisdom. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. And so now, in the midst of the street of it, and on the either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bare 12 manners of fruit, and yielded her fruit every month. And so we have 12 manners of fruits, and I'll show that this is a reference to God's elect, that yielded her fruit every month, so 12 months in a year. So there's no notion of like months and years in this. So this is why this is symbolic language. And I want people to understand this is in Revelation 22, 2. 2 times 22 is 44. So this is referring to God's elect, which bare 12 manners of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. So you have 12 times 12, 144, quote unquote, fruits. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Okay, and so this is symbolic language for how the elect are going to be, like it's describing here, this pure river of the water of life proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. Okay, and so this leadership, which is the complete opposite of the leadership now, which is about death, will be for healing, and then ultimately to be the ones who are the leaders, in the kingdom. And so this is an amazing reference to God's elect and how they're going to be the ones who are going to be the vessels for this quote unquote healing of the nations. So there's not going to be like death or like, people beating each other up or anything like that. But there still is going to be a form of judgment. And I'm going to explain that in Zechariah 14. So there's still an element of quote unquote free will. And so how this works, we don't even understand free will on this side, what little amount that we have, much less on that side. But, this is what it's referring to. This quote unquote water of life that is emanating out of the throne of God and of the Lamb, being reflective of the elect, being in charge of, being this leaves of the tree for the healing of the nations. Okay, and so just first and foremost, before we get to the healing part, Revelation 14:4 tells us that, these are the group, this is the first fruits. Revelation 14:4, not in that verse by coincidence, it's literally in verse 144. These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruits unto God and to the Lamb. And so that notion of first fruits is consistent with the language here, and yielded her fruit every month. And so this is letting us know that Revelation 22:2, 22 times 2, 44, is referring to God's elect, and then they're going to be the ones that are going to be this vessel, for the pure river of the water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. So that's incredible, okay? That this is, again, why this group, the 144, is very, very special. Revelation 22:3, and there shall be no more curse. That's in 22:3, 3 times 22, 66. And so talking about a curse. And there shall be no more curse, but the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it, and his servant shall serve him. So there's still an element of free will. And so I'll explain that in Zechariah 14. So how we're allowed to serve God now and have this element of free will, even though we don't ultimately, is a mystery. And then, it's also going to be a mystery on that side as well, of course. So Zechariah 14:12-21, and this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. So this is here on earth. And their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass in that day that a great tumult from the Lord shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. So there's going to be chaos everywhere. It's just a free-for-all, just literally trying to survive. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. So Judah, this is a reference to God's elect. This in verse 14, returning with Christ, to have this battle in the Middle East. and Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem. This is here on this side. I want people to understand. This fight's going to be in the sky, though. It's going to be easy. Verse 15, and so shall be the plague of the horse, of the mule, and of the camel, and of the ass, and of all the beasts that shall be in these tents as this plague. So this is everybody with the mark of the beast, or worship the image of the beast. Verse 16, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations, everyone that is left, okay? So all the people that didn't do this are either of God's elect or of the mixed multitude, that everyone that is left of all the nations, which came against Jerusalem, all the ones that are left that didn't do that, shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And so this is the group from all nations that are going to serve the elect. That's being referenced in verse 16. Verse 17, and it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. So this is obviously referring to the future. There has never been a time in human history where all of the families of the earth had an option even to worship the King, like it says here, the Lord of hosts. And so that's obviously in the future, okay? And obviously in the kingdom. Verse 18, and if the family of Egypt go not up and come not that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come up not to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come up not to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And so, like it says here, and if the family of Egypt go not up and come not that have no rain, there shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that come up not to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So many will, and then for the ones that don't, there's going to be this judgment that have no rain. And so that could very likely be consistent with Revelation 22. That's why I brought this out about they're not going to have access, to the quote unquote wisdom of God, which is ultimately distributed by the elect. And so, it's amazing. Just Zechariah 14:12 gives us some insight into the way the kingdom's going to be working, where there's still going to be an element of free will. It's going to be these quote unquote heathen nations that will be serving the elect, and then the elect are, doing whatever Christ says, okay? And so they're going to be the leaders in the kingdom. And so, but there still is an element of judgment, and then quote unquote free will, where people still have a choice, and so everybody in the kingdom, though, their righteousness is going to exceed that of the scribes and the Pharisees. Verse 21, yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judea shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts, and all they that sacrifice shall come and take of them and see it therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. And so there's going to be literal just cleansing, and so minimum amount of righteousness, needed in order to just simply be in this kingdom. Like Christ says, in no case shall, anybody who does not have the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees will in no case enter the kingdom. Okay. So there's a minimum amount of righteousness of the people that are in here, but we're being told here in Zechariah that there's still some amount of free will, and then there's still some amount of judgment. And I believe this is Christ's 1,000-year reign. And so this is the elect now seeing the earth being run in righteousness. And so ultimately there's going to be something that's after that I don't even think our minds can even wrap around, much less this. So that's prepared for them because they're eternal. Okay, they're going to live forever. And this has been set from the beginning that this is the narrative to make that happen. But this time that's being described here is a time of Christ ruling with his elect and then the heathen nation serving, but the heathen nation still have some amount of free will. God's elect are going to have the law put on their inward part, so they're essentially going to be made perfect, so they cannot sin anymore. And that's why they're the only people that are allowed, like it says here, yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judea shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts. They're going to be made perfect. God can't have like riffraff people stealing from the temple and defiling it and all that kind of stuff. And so, verse 20, and in that day shall there be upon the bells of the horses holiness unto the Lord, and the pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. And so we get that term altar again, talking about, God's temple, and then surrounding him is going to be righteous souls, the 144,000. So this to me is incredible. So the point of this lesson was basically to explain Revelation 22 and 1 and 2, and how that's a coded reference for God's elect. And then they're going to be the sort of distributors of this water of life, and it's going to emanate from the throne of God and of the Lamb. And then, like it says here, it's going to be for the healing of all nations. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.